Hey yo guys, how's it going? Tally here, and today I'm doing something new. We are going to have a chat about how good heroes are as a competitive deck. I'll be going over the pros, the cons, what makes it good and what makes it bad, the blessed news and the unfortunate truths. So make sure to comment your thoughts down below, sub to join Team Tally, and watch all the way through to help the channel grow. So honestly, I think it's a weird question to answer. Heroes have some amazing cards, but if they're so amazing, then why aren't they topping left, right and centre? Well, let's first look at some of the notable hero cards and compare them to cards currently in the metagame, and we can see why those cards are getting played, but heroes aren't topping. So the first card we're going to take a look at is of course going to be Masked Hero Darklaw, probably one of the most famous competitive hero cards ever. I've got the effect on screen, and the first thing we'll see is that the card is a Macrocosmos on legs. Any card that goes to the graveyard is banished, but only on your opponent's end of things. All of your precious cards are safe. Not only is the banish effect good, but it also punishes your opponent for searching cards by randomly banishing a card from their hand. Let's compare this to cards that do similar-ish things that have seen play in 2020. We currently have Herald of Arclight and Virtual World Cubate Shen. Now, neither of them are quite as broad as Darklaw in terms of banishing, but they do have other effects that back them up. Herald of Arclight is a negate that searches you a ritual, spell or monster when it's sent to the graveyard, and VW Cubate Shen is a recurring boss monster that is very difficult to take care of indefinitely. And on top of that, neither of them really require that much setup. It used to be a couple months ago before the ban of Linkcross that you could end on a Herald and a Borrow Savage with pretty much no effort at all. It used to be that Junk Synchron could do that. Shen does require a bit more setup, however, again it's a generic level 9 Synchro, and if this format shows anything, it's not difficult for a deck like Virtual World to go into a level 9 Synchro monster. But let's take a look at Darklaw. Darklaw requires not only a Mask Change card, but it requires a Dark Hero on field as well. Which doesn't sound impossible, but it does require more setup than the other two monsters, which don't have much going into them. This means that not only do you have to have a Dark monster on field, but you have to get what is generally a rather unsearchable card. It can be searched by Shadow Mist, which is absolutely fine, but you're not always going for that search effect for the mask change off of Shadow Mist. Sometimes you have to search a monster off of Shadow Mist, meaning that the level of consistency in which you see the card has dropped, especially since there's not as many easy ways to summon Shadow Mist without opening yourself up to cards like Nibiru. So while Darklaw definitely has an incredibly high power ceiling, it's not super easy to summon, and truthfully, this is gonna be where the biggest trend in hero monsters comes from. Alright, now that we've talked about a Jaden card, let's talk about an Aster Phoenix card, Destiny Hero Dystopia. Same again, card details are on screen, and you're gonna notice that this is really similar to Dryden, a card that currently, as this video is out, sees a lot of meta play in Zodiac decks. They're essentially quick play destruction effects, really good for disrupting combos, and when you pair it with Darklaw, it's really hard for your opponent to start building a board. But let's highlight a key difference between these two cards. Dryden requires a single Zodiac monster, whereas Dystopia needs either 2 Destiny heroes and a polymerization, or an unsearchable card in Fusion Destiny. And sure, Fusion Destiny is actually amazing. It's a huge ceiling card for the deck, but again, you have to hard draw it. And finally, for individual monsters, I'm going to take a look at 2 closely related heroes, Absolute Zero and Acid. Both have really powerful destruction effects that can destroy all of your opponent's monsters in Absolute Zero, and all of your opponent's back row in Acid. And when you set up Absolute Zero with a mask change, you have a full board wipe at any point during your opponent's turn. This means you pair that with Darklaw, and your opponent will very quickly run out of resources to be able to build a board, and you will have an easy access to OTK the next turn. But again, you take a look at the summoning requirements for these two monsters, and it's not super easy. Absolute Zero is probably the easiest to summon, as it requires just a water monster plus a hero monster, which to be quite frank, isn't very difficult to make happen in this deck. but it doesn't really do anything without something else stimulating it. Ultimately, for it to be very proactive, you need to send it from field to grave, either on your turn to break a board, or during your opponent's turn ideally, in order to break their board while they make their combo. But again, it's not entirely easy to do that. Same with Absolute Zero, absolute powerhouse of a card, but really, you need Mask Change, which isn't, as we said, super searchable. So I hope this establishes the key theme of this video. Heroes have some incredibly high power cards. Dark Law's amazing, Destiny Hero Dystopia also amazing, other cards that I haven't mentioned such as Bane is amazing. These cards have such high power levels, but to access them consistently isn't always easy. But I'm going to highlight that heroes do have a level of consistency in searching monsters that is incredibly powerful. You've got lots of cards on screen right now that are going to be able to search you monsters, and to go through them, we have Stratos, which is potentially one of the most famous hero monsters ever. We have Shadow Mist when sent to graveyard, we have Cross Crusader, and by extension we also have the Vision Hero engine for monsters, because you can get into Vion easily to send a Shadow Mist, and then you've got searches with Shadow Mist, you've got searches with Cross Crusader, so they're enablers. And in terms of spells, we also have 3 E-Call and a Rota, so the ability to search within the hero archetype is incredible, but you're searching monsters that don't actually do a huge amount on your opponent's turn, which is, again, part of the deck's problem. So really, to summarise the problem with the deck, it's got a really high power ceiling, but there's 2 main things that make it really difficult for it to be a top tier contender deck. The access to those really high powerful cards isn't incredibly consistent, and it has a lack of interaction on your opponent's turn, which makes it very difficult to set up any sort of disruption for your opponent without drawing these inconsistent high power cards. So now I'm going to take a crack at designing a couple cards for the hero deck that would ultimately solve these problems and make them as good as other tier 1 decks. What I would also like you to do is drop your thoughts and opinions on custom cards down below that you think would solve the deck's problems. And by the way, I could have rolled these effects all into one card for something truly busted, but I think that would just be a bit too much. So we're going to give it 2 cards, and these 2 cards are going to solve all of the problems the deck has. You're welcome. So our first card is going to be called Heroes Unite, just because that sounds like a cool kind of hero name, but that doesn't matter. It's a spell card, and it's going to say add 1 spell or trap card from your deck to your hand that specifically lists a hero monsters. Except a Heroes Unite. You can only activate 1 Heroes Unite per turn. This card very easily and very quickly gets us into things like Fusion Destiny and Mask Change, and allows the deck to consistently access those very high power monsters that are very difficult to out sometimes. And the second card I would propose to fix the hero deck, it's going to be a hand trap, and it's going to be Elemental Hero Savior Neos, because Neos kinda has a hand trap theme starting. Now, its effect reads, when your opponent activates a spell trap or another monster effect, quick effect, you can shuffle 2 hero monsters from your graveyard to your deck, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. And of course, this card is also a hard once per turn too. Now, what does this actually do? Right, of course it's a Subterra Fiendess, but the thing about heroes is sometimes you're searching monsters purely because you have the ability to search monsters. So in this, you're going to have the ability to easily search out some interaction during your opponent's turn that's going to allow you to set up some high power monsters and stop your opponent from making really substantial plays. This is ultimately something really simple, it's almost Salamangreat-esque, and you're just kind of stopping your opponent till the next turn. The problem is heroes can't really see high power cards consistently, and I think this consistently fixes that problem. But let me know down in the comments below what you think about the cards that I've proposed today. If you would propose your own cards, drop them in the comments below. And we have a couple of things left before we take it to the outro. So ultimately, we've taken a look at some of the problems of heroes, we've taken a look at some of the really good parts of heroes, and we're going to answer the questions, are heroes good? The answer is yeah, depending on your context. If you're taking heroes to a YCS, I wouldn't expect a topping slot. If you're playing heroes with your friends, I would expect to win almost all the time, right? They're an incredible deck for a rogue or casual setting. If you're going to locals, if you're playing a more casual to rogue locals, you're going to expect a lot of wins. If you're playing at really competitive events, heroes currently don't have the steam to keep up. But does any of that matter? Heroes are my favourite deck, and regardless of whether or not they're tier 100 or tier 0, I'm going to continue to play heroes because they are fun. I love this deck, I will not ever stop playing this deck, and I will of course shell out stupid amounts of money whenever Konami makes a new card for heroes that makes them even 5% better. Anything below 5% ain't worth my money, but 5%'s not a huge benchmark to overcome. Yeah, heroes are a good deck in a lot of different contexts, but they're not a tier 1 deck, and that's okay. Guys, let's take it to the outro. As always, if you like the video, give it a like. If you love it, give it a share and tell everyone you know about Team Tally today. If you haven't joined Team Tally and you've sat this far, I think that means that you ought to join by hitting that subscribe button. As always, make sure to comment down below what you think about the video, and if you would like more discussion style videos just to kinda chill out and have a coffee too. As always, you have been amazing, I have been Tally, I'll catch you all later. Bye.